everyone, and welcome to another edition of Massey United Insurance's Line and Length. It's a cricket program where we look at the sport not only in the region, but internationally as well. I'm your host, Barry Wilkinson. Hello to all of our friends on Digicel's Sportsmax, and of course, wherever you're watching this broadcast. Well, it's been a week of sadness for the West Indies cricket fraternity. They've lost one of their most identifiable figures, Captain Peter Short, who was president of the WICB for quite some time, and also the Barbados Cricket Association. He passed away on Tuesday right here in Bridgetown, Barbados. On today's program, we have some tributes from Tony Cozier, Joe Garner, the current president, and of course we hear from some friends who knew Captain Peter Short very well. And that Ashes series, I tell you, Australia bowled out on the first day for 60. We're going to also discuss that and look back at what was a tremendous morning for Stuart Broad. All this and more to come on Massey United Insurance's Line and Length.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
Welcome back to the program. As promised, with us is Tony Cozier, and of course our co-host Andrew Seeley is here with us. First of all, Tony, when the unfortunate news broke about Captain Peter Short passing away, the first person I said would know almost chapter and verse about Captain Peter was yourself. You were good friends, and he was an administrator when you were in your heyday, Tony, of covering cricket in Barbados and the region.
Yeah, point of order, I'm still in my heyday, so let's get that straight. But I was with Peter Short at Wanderers Club, for instance, played together when he carried those teams to England, a composite Wanderers team, not only Wanderers players, predominantly Wanderers, but players invited from other clubs as well. We went every 2 years. He played and I played with him. So yes, I knew him very well, and we would chat quite often and so on. And of course, in that period, when he was the president of the Barbados Cricket Association, but before that, when he was a member of the Committee of Management of the Barbados Cricket Association since 1964, and then he became the president of the West Indies Board on the sudden passing of Eric Innes. And he was also the secretary, the honorary secretary of the West Indies Cricket Board of Control under Noel Pearce, and that would have been back in 69-70. So he was always very, very closely associated with the administration of West Indies cricket. And of course, West Indies cricket in that time was very strong. Barbados cricket was exceedingly strong during that period. Between 1972 and 1982, in 10 years, the West Indies won the regional championship 7 times and there were a number of new players coming through. Of course, before that, there'd been Sobers and Nurse and Hall and Griffith and Hunt and so on. But then during that period, under Peter Short and under, let us say, under the Barbados Cricket Association, because he was a leader, he was the administrator, he was the president, but there were people under him as well who did the job. Cammie Smith did say that one of the striking things as far as he was concerned was that there was no division within the team, within the group, within the BCA management, Committee of Management, that leaked out, that the majority's decision held. Of course, there were the dissenting views in the boardroom itself, but when they decided by a majority that, right, that held and we'll go with that, of course, quite different from what happens now. And that's the difference. I think this is why Peter Short's passing has created such comment from all over, and some favorable comment, because now we come into a situation where a lot of confusion in the administration of the game. The game has come right down, and it's not just by chance that Barbados and West Indies were quite strong in those years. It was because they also had good administrators, Peter Short being the president, and there were others. But you know, it just doesn't happen like that. Nobody waves a wand and says, okay, you're going to be the best team in the world or the best team in the Caribbean for the next 10 years. And it happens like that. It doesn't happen like that. It takes good leadership.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been lacking in West Indies cricket now for some time.
And Tony, even before though, when Captain Short was actually involved in the administration of Barbados and West Indies cricket, he was in fact one of us. He was a commentator in the box alongside some familiar names. And perhaps you could take us through some of that as well, when Captain Peter Short was actually in the commentator's booth.
Well, he was on the opposite side as far as I was concerned. He did really fusion, and I was on CBC when CBC first started. But I know, I mean, I've listened to him, of course, for a long time, and he was very highly respected in that regard. And I think people realized, listening to him on the radio, the kind of personality he was. He was very fair to the players. The players, you only got to speak to them now. They all had respect for him, and he had respect for them. Wes Hall said that Peter Short has been ailing for some time, but Sir Wes Hall and Royal Branca, who were coming through that period in the 70s when Barbados was so strong, Wes towards the end, Royal Branca very much involved in the team. They went up to see Peter Short one evening, and they said they had a really enjoyable time with him there, even though he was quite weak at the time, and just shows the kind of respect that, you know, players from his period had for him. And I think that's, generally speaking, it wasn't only the players. You know, it's a period now for nostalgia. We look back at the days when Barbados were so strong, West Indies strong. You hear a lot of talk about how great the West Indies team was, and the Richards and the Lloyds and all that, because we really don't have much to go now that we can say that we're really, really proud of. We're not. We can be. But in that time, you know, we were proud. We had every reason to be proud.
How did he become a captain? What was how did he become Captain Peter?
He was in the British Army in the late 1940s, early 50s. He then was assigned to Malaysia, in the campaign in Malaysia, when the British when Malaysia was in a colony, and they had problems with I believe communist terrorism and all that type of thing, and they were out there, and he served out there as well. Got, as they say, mentioned in dispatches on 2 occasions, and he became a captain in the army.
Okay.
But of course, that title then went into abeyance as far as the army was concerned when he was demobbed. But you know, everyone here still called him captain up to the end.
Right.
You know, in a very respectful way. You know, they called him Captain Peter Short. It came naturally, but it went back to those days. He played for the army in England. He played minor counties up there as well, and then he came back and played for Wanderers. He captained the Wanderers team, which won the Division 1 championship in 1961, the first of the hat trick, which Wanderers did in Division 1. And it wasn't only as far as the playing side was concerned, but the Barbados Cricket Association then, under his leadership, attracted a number of new teams coming into the BCA, which previously were with the BCL.
Right.
You know, you look at the St. Catharines and the Bristols and so on that came in. And the thing expanded to such an extent. First of all, you had the intermediate, and then there were so many teams, you had to divide intermediate and second into zones. So there were a lot of, the BCA became very much bigger and, if anything, more important than it had been originally. And then of course the development of Kensington Oval through the instant money game, which brought money flooding into the Barbados Cricket Association, and they invested it in Kensington Oval mainly. I mean, I know there are a lot of people say that it should have been invested in the development of players, but players were coming through,
right.
You know, and they don't come through by luck. You know, somebody has to develop them.
I remember during the Rebel Tour, there was a very identifiable man coming on television explaining that the cricketers who went on that rebel tour to South Africa would then be banned. He was acting then as secretary, because I remember he came out and he was the one who made the statement saying that those cricketers who've gone would not be eligible to play for West Indies for a long period of time.
Well, that was 1983. I'm not sure you would have been president of the West Indies board then.
No,
he
he
was-
would have been probably, or maybe the Barbados representative on the.
He was,
the
but
Barbados
he was.
representative.
But he spoke on Barbados television.
Yes, correct.
As far as that was concerned.
But he would have been the Barbados
Yeah.
representative
Because
on
you were appointed assistant secretary
in 1990.
when he became.
No, and I was there in 1990, and he was the representative to the WICB.
But when he became
president, I was working with him very
right,
closely. Yes.
exactly. Yeah.
A top class gentleman,
Yeah,
I have to say.
And the thing is that you look back, now, and
That's when we had 3 people in the office.
right, exactly. Yourself, Steve Camash, and him.
Right.
And you look back now, and people will look and say, "Oh, he was an anachronism." Here's this white Bajan with a twirly mustache. Went to the British Army and became a captain in the British Army.
Representing the West Indies.
Right, exactly.
But Tony, what would you say would be his enduring legacy? You've spoken of a few things, but what would you say would be his enduring legacy?
Well, what I just said. I don't think there's any more that you really can add to that. I think the fact that he led a Barbados Cricket Association board of management as the leader, as the president, and had them all with him. We now hear pulling here and pulling there. The reports.
About 25 directions.
Right, exactly. There were reports that the Barbados Cricket Association directed its delegates to the election of the West Indies Cricket Board president, a couple of years back, to vote in favor of one ticket, which included Joel Garner and the incumbent Julian Hunt. And in fact, they went against the directive of the Barbados Cricket Association. Now, that could not have happened at that time. If it had happened, they would have resigned. They would have, on principle, and that was it. They existed really on a matter of principle. And Sir Hilary Beckles, in one of his books on the development of West Indies cricket, reckoned that Peter Short was misunderstood, and that's what he said. He was not, as he was considered in some quarters, representative of the old dispensation, where the white clubs dominated and so on. But he saw cricket as, and Barbados and West Indies cricket, as ensuring that the game was played with values, played and with principle, and that was the game it was, a game of gentlemen. All the way through,
So you've identified the legacy. Thank you.
That's in addition.
All right, we're gonna continue a bit with the tributes when we come back on the program. We're gonna hear from Cammie Smith, and we're also gonna hear from the current president of the BCA, Joel Garner, and also give you a statement from the WICB current president, Dave Cameron. All this and more when we come back on Mass United Insurance's Line and Length. And don't forget, a bit later on, we're gonna talk about that Australian cricket team. What has gone wrong all of a sudden? When we come back.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
So we're back on the program, Mass United Insurance's Line and Length. Well, here's what the current president of the WICB had to say, Dave Cameron. He sent out a release quite early. And naturally, the board, they are saddened by the loss of Captain Peter, who would have led the association for a number of years, and the WICB, when it was then the WICB board, West Indies Cricket Board of Control, that C in WICBC has been dropped. It's no longer control. And Dave Cameron sending out his condolences on behalf of the WICB. Now, we've also we're also going to hear from someone who sat on the board with the president, of course, when he was at the BCA. I'm talking about his very good friend, former West Indies cricketer and Barbados cricketer, Cammie Smith. We went to his home just after the passing of Captain Peter.
Peter was a very gentle individual. He did his cricket like a captain did. He understood what leadership meant, and he was able to control his members much better than it's being done these days, I must say. And we got along very well indeed, and I really enjoyed working under him because he became president since 1973 and went on until 1993. So, and I was there as a board member from 69 until I went in 1996 when they got rid of me. But we enjoyed many, many happy days together, and he was always a pleasure to work with. And he also had some very good board members working with him. And fortunately, too, he had some good ex-cricketers who also served on the board with him. Unlike now, when there are not many ex-cricketers who are on the board. And it makes a difference because then the cricketers themselves understand a hell of a lot more what is required about cricket. And we do miss him. We miss him very badly. He made an exceptional contribution to Barbados and West Indies cricket during his period.
What would you say is the legacy that Captain Peter Short has left?
The legacy, if anything, was that was control. He was able to control his members. He was able to keep the standard of cricket at a high level. You got to remember too that during his period, Barbados was at the really head of the cricketing fraternity in West Indies, and there's no doubt that other territories in the West Indies also respected Barbados, especially the manner in which the administration kept the cricket going. He was an exceptional leader, and we are very saddened to have lost him.
In terms of your friendship with him, were you very close friends, even if not colleagues?
Yeah, when you come to think of it, we both worked at BS&T. We were all directors there together, and we worked very well, and it was easy to deal with. If you had a view, you expressed it. If he disagreed with you, he understood. He was not the type who would be annoyed because you had a different view, because in life, we cannot all agree on everything. And that made life a lot easier because there was respect both ways. He understood from me what he had to say, and I understood from him what he had to say. And that also applied to the other board members as well. So I think that really served us well throughout those period of time.
Last but not least, what can the current crop of administrators at the local level, even the higher level, what do you think they should take a leaf out of Captain Peter Short's book if they want to be like him?
What is important is that they must respect each other. And when decisions are made at board level, they should remain as decisions of the board and not decisions of individuals. There are times when you agree with things, there are times when you don't agree with things. There were many times when I was on the board, I used to say often, you win some and you lose some. But when a decision is reached, members should respect that and carry it on, and just don't bellyache and carry on, as obviously that is happening in these days with the cricket. And it was a real pleasure to work with him because he understood individuals and individuals understood him. We had no problems at all, really. I mean, you disagree with each other, but after a board meeting, which used to end pretty early too, unlike today, which I understand can go on till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, which is ridiculous. We would finish 10 o'clock, 10:15, and then have a drink together, disagree, then agree again, and carry on to the next board meeting. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much there, Cammie Smith. And earlier, our own president right now of the BCA, former West Indies cricketer as well, Joe Garner, he caught up with our co-host, Andrew Seeley.
You know, we are saddened by the passing of Captain Short. He was a long-standing president of the Barbados Cricket Association, president of the West Indies Cricket Board, and he gave yeoman's service to cricket in the region. We can only shower accolades on him for the work that he's done. As a past administrator, friend, statesman, I've had the privilege of meeting Captain Short when I was playing second 11 cricket. Was still a young fella, and afterwards serving on the same board as for us, it was a trying time. When I say trying, not trying in terms of the difficulties, but being a young, exuberant fella, and having to meet with the older folks. I think that there was a little bit of a lot of respect shown between both parties. He had the ability to get things done. What I can say to you is that the meetings were never contentious, or there were always results at the end of the meeting, and you have to give him praise for that. He also led the West Indies Cricket Board with distinction as well.
Certainly, as you mentioned, he led the West Indies Cricket Board. He was also a representative of the West Indies at the ICC, and it was part and parcel of the decision when, in fact, Sir Clyde Walcott would have become the first chairman from the West Indies of the ICC.
Yes, he was. Actually, I think that it would be fair to say that Captain Short followed Clyde Walcott after he became chairman of the ICC into the West Indies Cricket Board. So there was a sort of natural progression between the two. I don't think that would have detracted from the kind of work or service that he gave to cricket in general right away through the region. What I can say to you is that he always did a job with some sort of poise and integrity, and it's something that we can learn from him by just seeing how he operated.
Well, you mentioned that the trying times for West Indies cricket now, and we surely probably could use someone of the stature of Captain Peter Short to smooth over some of the things that are happening.
Yes, I think right now in West Indies cricket we need a lot of diplomacy. I don't think it's time where you have people who can be bullish and want to ram things through. I think right now it calls for a lot of talk, a lot of not only talk but thinking, and we could use some of those qualities that those older fellas exhibited. I think that there's a lot of diplomacy that is needed too, in order to get a lot of the work that we want done at the higher level, and I think that those were qualities exhibited by Captain Short.
Well, thank you so much. May he rest in peace. Captain Peter Short, gone, but certainly will not be forgotten at the age of 89. When we come back, we look at the Australia cricket team, who were bowled out for 60 in that fourth test match.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
Welcome back on the program. Now, the Ashes, they're ongoing as we record, so never could tell if Australia made a grand fight back, which I sincerely doubt. But nevertheless, the first morning of that fourth and crucial Ashes test, Australia bowled out for 60. Tony Cozier, did that surprise you? Yes, they have been on the decline in their batting in the last test, but did that surprise you how quickly they folded for just 60 runs?
A team all out for 60? Of course, that's a big surprise, unless you're playing under 15 cricket here or whatever. Yeah. But a team all out for 60, an international team, a team which is ranked, I believe, number 2 test side in the world, now to be bowled out for 60. Certainly is very surprising, but they said when they went to England, and the English said, we need English type pitches where the ball will move around, and we'll see how they can handle it here. Because they're not, especially the younger players who are coming up there now, are not accustomed to playing in conditions such as that. Right. But of course you've got to bowl and you've got to catch.
And they caught very well. The England have been catching superb.
That's what England did. Yeah. The same thing with us here when England were in the Caribbean. They were a better team than we were, certainly on the rankings and actually, but we beat them in the last test match. I think we dropped 1 catch. In the entire series, in the 3 test matches. You've got to take your catches. If you don't, somebody's going to make you pay. And England have caught really well, which they didn't do against New Zealand, but now they're doing so against Australia. But you look at the Australian batsmen, all the commentators who know exactly what they're talking about, they're going at the ball hard, they're not waiting for the ball to come to them. they're playing like they play in Australia. And Broad, especially in that 60 all-out, bowled beautifully.
Yeah.
Tony, talking about Broad, because there was the discussion that in the absence of James Anderson, that Broad would have to step up a plate, and he certainly did.
Well, no question, yeah. And then, of course, you got Finn coming through, having dropped off the radar, really. He's come right back, and he was the man of the match in the previous victory. So they've got and then with Anderson gone, all of a sudden Woods come in now. You don't hear about Chris Jordan again. He's probably a one-day bowler now. So they've got a number of fast bowlers coming through. They've also got this fellow Root. I mean, he's outstanding.
Yeah, yet another century. Yeah.
He's outstanding. I mean, he's got to be as good a batsman as there is now at present. We talk about Kohli. They were talking about Smith as well, right? But I can't.
Would you say, Tony, that the numbers sometimes can lie? Because we spoke a bit about Kohli and his numbers. Their numbers were so good, but then when we saw him in England, he didn't look the same way. Steve Smith's numbers are great, but now looking at him in the UK, it doesn't look the same. Would you say that sometimes numbers can in fact lie?
Well, Michael Holding made the point on the commentary on the first day of that Test match when Australia went for 60, and he was saying, the people talk about greatness. He said, you've got to have great is a word which you very rarely use. Yeah, and you've got to then make runs all over the world, get wickets all over the world, and then you can say, well, perhaps this fellow is great, but you've got to prove yourself under all conditions. Yeah. And Smith is now being found out in England. Kohli has not had a good time in certain countries. But Root perhaps not either. Root got 180 here in the Grenada Test match. Didn't do well in Australia, but in fact got dropped from the team, and that seemed to have shaken him up because since then he's produced a lot of runs. But I would expect him then to make runs everywhere. He's young. He has South Africa coming up. In South Africa, he's got Pakistan in Dubai and all those places. So he will be tested because when he plays overseas to see how good he is, whether he is in fact great. But to be honest, he looks to me as if he could well qualify for that status.
How good do you rate Stuart Broad as a bowler?
Well, I mean, like when you see him here in this series, in these conditions, bowling superbly, absolutely superbly. The line is right, the length is right, the movement is there. And of course, he's got compliant Australian batsmen,
I like that.
who are not quite up to the level which is really needed to counteract that.
Is Australian cricket so much on the decline, Tony, that they should be worried, or you think they have enough stock in Australia that can help them prop up?
I don't think they should be worried to any large extent. They're in England and they're being found out by conditions and by top-class bowling, supported by really good fielding. And they've got a strong base in Australia as well. So, after all, they came here and knocked over West Indies. West Indies had just beaten England, and they came here and rolled over West Indies quite comfortably. And they've number 2 in the world.
Well, I mean, it's all to watch, all to look forward to. That fifth and final Test match, which is on August 20th, a great day. Someone's birthday is on that day. Someone who hosts a program called Master United Insurance's Line and Length. So promises to be a great day to start with.
You're 50 already.
Well, I have never made a 50, so no.
Well, we know that you've never made a 50. We know that for sure. I don't know if you're going to make one now.
I made several 50s, far from that age, But it's going to be a great Test match. Tony, look, I want to thank you for coming. Unfortunately, under the circumstances, you had to come to talk about Captain Peter. And of course, Andrew will be back next week as we continue to see what's happening in the world of cricket. As you can tell, look out for the series that continues with Zimbabwe and of course South Africa. And we can't forget that India, they'll be playing a series shortly. We're going to have lots of cricket for you to watch right here on Digicel Sportsmax. I'm Barry Wilkinson. On to next week. Bye-bye for now.